All right, we're going to delve into this a little more deeper. Philip Cross is joining me now. He's a senior fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. He joins me from our Ottawa studios. So, Philip, what is your take on what you heard from the finance minister today regarding his fiscal update?
Well, it's really remarkable when you compare what the Bank of Canada was saying about the economy over the last couple of weeks, Steve Pollitt's in a speech last week, for example, and Bill Morneau. You'd have to question, are these people talking about the same economy? Morneau, everything was sweetness and light, very strong, better growth than most of the G7, whereas the Bank of Canada keeps talking about how we seem to be stuck in a rut of low growth. The global economy is slowing. We have a lot of debt, particularly household debt, that there's a lot of vulnerabilities and risks about the Canadian economy. So as I say, there didn't seem to be any connect between the two. And I think very obviously the analysis you want to believe is the Bank of Canada's. Morneau still seems to be an election full spin cycle. Everything's great. Don't worry. Be happy. Somebody should tell him the election's over, and he can start talking about some of the real challenges this country faces in its economy.
Well, we certainly saw reporters there trying to sort of push him on that and say, how can you be sure there isn't going to be a recession? How can you ensure and justify the $26.6 billion that you're going to be looking to spend? You know, that is way up from the $19.8 billion that we're looking at right now. And of course, his responses is we're looking at investment and investing in Canadians. But when we look at those deficit numbers, what are your thoughts there? Because they're saying to gain more, you got to spend more. I mean, that's sort of what I'm grasping from all of this. But in the meantime, take that coupled with what the provinces are looking for. Where's the balance there?
I thought the journalist did a very good job of calling him out and saying, how are you going to square the circle of keeping the debt to GDP ratio stable, which is in your mandate letter, and increasing all these spending programs on top of a big tax cut? I mean, it just doesn't add up. At some point, if they're not willing to make hard decisions, the debt to GDP ratio is going to increase, either because debt increases or because, in a worst case scenario, GDP starts declining. But it's very hard to believe that in a strong economy, corporate profits aren't falling, deficits aren't rising. The exchange rate would be rising as we become more attractive to the rest of the world. None of these things are happening that indicate that the economy is really strong. The one number he could point to, and he kept coming back to it over and over again, was employment. And even there, we saw employment start to come back to earth in the November numbers. He didn't want to talk about GDP because we're stuck in a real slow growth lane for GDP, which reflects what incomes are doing. And that's sort of what bled through in the election. Canadians raised the issue of affordability. Affordability means that my income isn't high enough for me to buy the things that are high priced.
Right.
And there's no indication that they want to address that in this update.
Really quickly, Philip, I've got pretty much running out of time here, but I want to get your quick thoughts on his comment saying Canada is going to be the second strongest G7 country in terms of growth in 2020.
Yeah. Well, I think that basically reflects that everybody else is flat in their back. Europe isn't growing at all. They've come to a complete stall. Japan is stalled as well. China has the lowest growth in 30 years. Even the U.S. is down from its initial bump it got from the Trump tax cuts. So as we said, at Statistics Canada, we're often called the best statistical agency in the world. The inside joke was you can be the best and not be very good.
Well, yeah, comparing those numbers, certainly. All right, Philip Cross, senior fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. Great chatting with you, Philip. Thanks a lot for giving us your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you.